All right, we're live. It's Wednesday. I'm back with Mark Cosco. I'm so excited. Welcome, Mark, to the Positive Effect.
Thank you. Thank you.
So happy that you're here. So I'm just going to set up before we jump into your, retail story today. I'm so excited. So if you're joining us, put your name in the chat. Tell us where you're from. We have an amazing retail global community that joins us every week. And also, if you have any comments or questions, write them in the chat. We will get to them afterwards. We always go back and read them afterwards and just, we love hearing what you're learning from these conversations. And then also share this with your retail network. If you come across this in your feed, we really appreciate you sharing it, because this conversation that I bring to life every week with my amazing retail network from LinkedIn is golden career conversations of people that have had success throughout their retail career and have really made a positive impact on the people and the business that they led. And I want to share this with as many people as we can so that they can learn from people like me and you, Mark. So
wonderful.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk to you about your retail story. And I'm really excited because what I know about you, you've worked at Harry Rosen. You worked at Harry Rosen for 26 years, I think. And
yes, yeah.
And I was saying to you earlier, I'm just really impressed with people that I meet that have worked in a brand for so long, because there's so many things that you probably accomplished in that brand. And so we're going to just jump right in. So how did you start your retail journey? Because I think that's always an interesting question, because we all come into it in different ways. So walk us through how you started your retail journey.
Well, I had two parts to my retail journey. So the first part was I started with my father. My father opened up a men's clothing store in Mississauga, and I was, a young man. I was still going to school at the time, and so what I did, and kind of, when you are part of a family that tries to support each other, I was going to school, but I also would work in the store part-time, and I was able to work out a schedule with my school where I would only attend classes in the morning, and then I could work in the store in the afternoon. And so we worked together. Dad was an amazing man. He was a merchant and a tailor and a designer. He could do it all, and he was a great salesman. So I learned a tremendous amount from him. About a year and a half or 2 years into the store being in operation, Dad had a heart attack, and he was in New York at the time. So I had to stop going to classes because obviously, somebody had to be back at the store. So I went back to classes, I went back to the store. And back in those days, the recovery time of that type of thing was longer. And of course, obviously being a long distance situation,
Sure.
Dad didn't get back till probably, I would say 3 months, I think it was, before he actually got back to Canada and Ontario. When he was back, he seemed to be okay. Everything was fine. We kind of picked up again. But at that point in time, I realized that I had missed a big part of the school year. And I had the choice of, either starting over and the next year. But I just kind of fell into working in the store then. I started working full time, and Dad and I worked together. And then unfortunately, about another, maybe I guess a year and a half or 2 years later, Dad had a much bigger heart attack. And then this time it was harder for him to bounce back. So at that point in time, we became more partners than him sort of being the owner and me being the employee type of thing. It was more partnership, and I assumed more control of the store, and we branched out and did things. We were very, very heavily involved in made to measure, and we gained a big reputation as people who could fit, the people who were difficult to fit. So we got a lot of customers that way. And I was trying things all the time. I was trying new things. Business casual around that time was becoming a little bit of importance in the business world. So you were seeing casual Fridays, and so I started facilitating sessions where I would go to businesses and I would help them to guide their people as to what business casual should look like. Because Yeah, back then there was no guidance. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the people that I always remember the one I was doing a session in one business, and the president was the one who asked me to come in, and I asked him. I said, "So what are your concerns with regard to business casual?" And he said, "You'll see." And I didn't understand what he meant until everybody got into the boardroom. And so the boardroom was held probably about 24 people, 12 on one side, 12 on the other. The 12 on this side were all right into business casual. So they were, but it was all over the place. It was cut off shorts, it was t-shirts and thing. And then on this side, it was all suits and shirts and ties.
Wow.
So, obviously I realized right away there was a divide and we had to come to some happy medium. But for what they were looking for, they were looking for guidance in business casual. And the other thing that I started was going to people's homes and working with them in their homes or their offices. So I was, because Made to Measure was so mobile, I could bring things to them and to sell them in their homes. So I did that. And we had the store I was with Dad for about 18 years
Wow.
in the store. And then at that point, that's when I started to get the itch to start to do things on a bigger level. And I had talked to my cousin who worked at Harry Rosen's, and we had lunch one day, and he says, "Why don't you come down and talk to the people?" And I knew of the Rosen people. I knew Harry from before, only briefly. So I came down and got hired, and that's how my journey started with Harry Rosen's.
Wow. And so when you were at Harry Rosen, like, what did you start, like, walk us through your career? And that's an amazing story, by the way, 18 years of having your own store. I did not know that. I love that story, because that really, there's probably so many stories and experiences from that then you could take with you. And it was really the driving factor to do something on a bigger scale that wanted you to go to Harry Rosen?
Yes, yeah, but what I loved about the idea, and that's why I said it's two parts. I had the opportunity to work in a store where it was a very small operation. It was a family-run, obviously operation.
Yeah,
got to know customers really, really well, and then I moved into a company that was national, that was right across Canada. So I had that opportunity as well. When I started at Rosen's, I started as a sales manager in their downtown location, which was in the Scotia Plaza at the time, and I worked with some great people, great managers there. And I had a brief stint of managing the Fairview Mall store while it went through their renovations and expansion. This was right around the transition where at one time, and this was just before I joined Rosen's, they were selling ladies' clothing as well. So they were moving away from ladies' clothing and moving more heavily into the men's clothing. And so it was around that transition time that I was there, and I moved obviously to the Fairview store for a while. Then I came back they moved me back to the downtown store, and that's when I had meetings with Harry, and we talked about the idea of taking he had goals in mind. He wanted to improve the tailored clothing, the way it was being sold and taught on how to sell it in the company. Made to Measure, he wanted to improve that, and then the last goal was tailor shops, which came much later. But those were the two big goals: was improving the tailored clothing division as well as Made to Measure.
Wow, that's a huge part of their business now, isn't it?
Well, Made to Measure grew. See, Made to Measure started off very small, and it grew. I mean, if I remember correctly, when I started with Made to Measure, we were somewhere around 7 million or 8 million. I think. Sorry, we're less than that. I think it might have been under 5 million. And in the heyday, at the very top, we were just around $40 million.
Wow.
So we grew it quite a bit in a relatively short period of time, but that came as a result of dedication to obviously the product as well and what we were carrying. But it also came at a time when a lot of our makers, so we had makers already who were doing Made to Measure, but a lot of the European makers were adopting Made to Measure in a more serious way. So all of a sudden, Armani, Canali, Zegna, all these labels were becoming much stronger in Made to Measure, and we were obviously a great venue for them to introduce that. So that helped it tremendously as well too.
Yeah. So that must have taken so setting off to have like a goal like that and going from like here to here and building that business, that must have taken a ton of leadership and courage and, just willpower. And so like, how did you approach that? Like, how do you do that? How do you like go from here to here? Because this is a good lesson for many people that want to build something within the current business they're in or pivot what they're already doing. So what can we learn from you? Like, how do you go about approaching that?
Well, I think the thing is that it has to start at the top in the sense that there has to be a commitment. So obviously Harry was committed to it. I was committed to it. The executive committee had to be committed to it. So, that was, obviously that was Harry and his working with that team. And then we started branching out and we said, okay, well, we have regional directors in our company. Well, we need to get them on site and we need to show them how to do made to measure. And made to measure was a mystery at one time. And even, Harry, to some extent, when it came to measuring, he had his cards close to his chest a lot of the time, whereas I looked at it and said, no, I want more and more people knowing how to do that. And that's how I eventually wrote the made to measure training program that we had in the company, so that more and more people got involved. But we started with the regional directors, then we moved to the store managers and made them aware. And they had to know how to do it. They had to understand how to sell a made to measure, how to measure for it. And we also at the same time started looking for people in the stores that liked it, that liked made to measure. And I didn't care. It wasn't, I didn't necessarily want the top salespeople. I wanted somebody who was passionate about it. If they were passionate about made to measure, then those were the people that we identified as the leaders within the store. And so we got appointed those people. And the last part was the actual visual part. And every store moving forward, I worked closely with our store designer, and every store moving forward had a made to measure department, had something to show, and those departments became beautiful and very, very elegant. And so it became, part of the visual for when customers come in. Because one of the frustrating things is that as I was going through this process, people were saying to us when we would suggest made to measure, they'd say, oh, you guys have made to measure? And, to say that we'd had it all along. So for them to say that, we knew that we needed to do something to show it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's so many things that we assume that customers know that we do when we're working in a store or working in a brand, and they actually don't. I remember having that experience when I worked at Apple, all the things that I learned from being on the inside and then like having to train the customers on it. And they didn't know that we had services, or they didn't know that you could just walk into an Apple store and change your phone over and get an iPhone in an Apple store through the provider there. They thought you had to go to the provider, which you actually don't. And if you go to an Apple store, you get a much better experience going to the provider, right? Versus going to a Fido store or something. So it's so interesting. It's like education. So what I'm hearing from you is you really believe in finding people that are passionate about what you want to do, get them excited. And also that training is really important. Yeah. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh yeah. Training was key. And part of my role was throughout the time that I was there was training. So I was training, and we had programs within the company that focused on ready to wear training, how to fit a garment, as well as made to measure. And my role was continually going out to stores when we had new associates on board, and training them in ready to wear, and then when the time came in made to measure as well too, and follow up. One of the things that we did consistently was we followed up. So everybody in the company eventually was assessed once a year on their made to measure ability. So they would be assessed by actually going through a made to measure sale. Same thing with the clothing, ready to wear clothing. They would actually go through a clothing sale with an assessor who would check off and make sure that they hit all the key points that they were supposed to hit.
So that's important.
Very important. I think that, because again, there's a consistency. And what was great about it was that no one was exempt from it. So we did it with store managers, we did it with regional directors, and everybody realized how important that was as a visual message. So if I met a regional director in one of the stores and we went through an assessment, he and I were going through an assessment, everybody was watching this happen. And it sent a very positive message to everybody to say, you know what, everybody has to go through this. This is important. This is part of the culture of our company.
I think that's huge what you just shared, because I think like when you want to, and this is really important for anybody that works in retail or leads a team or wants to roll out a strategy, what Mark just shared is really having everybody at all levels bought into it and demonstrating it. You know, like those small things that you do every day, not just training salespeople to do it, but like you said, regional directors, will actually shape the culture of what people think are important in a company, right? And I shared this story with you before we jumped on here about when I would walk into a store, if I saw a customer standing at a register, right, ready to pay, and the staff were talking to each other behind the cash desk, this was my biggest pet peeve. I would walk up to the customer and start talking to the customer and apologize to the customer for the staff talking in front of them. And that sent a very clear message, right? The staff were like, oh, woof, I can't talk in front of, you know, like the customer's got to come first. Like, let's get it right, people. And that's really important.
I love that story. I love it so much because it reminds me so much of the way Harry was, okay? Because he was the same way. Anytime he went into a store, if he saw a customer being or ignored or whatever, it didn't matter. I can't tell you how many times that we would fly into a city, we'd get to the store, and he'd see somebody not being taken care of. His coat, his hat, everything would fly off, and it would almost kind of throw it in my arms. And I would go and put the suitcase and all that away while he was going to take care of the customer. And he hadn't even walked, he'd only been in the store for seconds. And, you know, it was such a great example, and it set a standard in our company. You know, you talk about the points that one of the things that Harry was really proud of is together he and I wrote what we called the standards for the company. And these were standards that everyone had to follow when a customer walked in the door. So from greeting to right through to the end of whether if it was a garment that was being altered to the delivery. And we had set standards on how they had to follow. And Harry's point is that I don't care if the customer buys a $5,000 Brioni suit or a $100 pair of slacks. He said, I want him treated exactly the same way. I want them both treated exactly the same way with the same level of respect and all that. And that was the birth of those standards. And I loved the fact that we had those because it was our form of measurement. And what was interesting about it was that for the people that when we introduced them initially at one of our management meetings, the comment came back was, this should be the least that we do.
Right.
You know, I mean, I almost wanted to kiss that guy because I said, you know, that's exactly the way we feel. This is the base. Anything you do after this is over and above, and it'd be great if you did. So. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. So I mean, there's probably so many, you just shared a few already, but there's so many probably huge lessons learned working, you know, for Harry Rosen and specifically with him, you know, alongside him. But what's like what's your top 2 lessons learned from working with them that you could share with us that could help us learn?
I think first of all, he was unbelievably focused on customers. So it didn't matter what was going on. He was it all centered around the customer. So whatever decision was being made in the company, he would relate it back to the customer and also to the employee. He loved employees. I mean, he loved the people that worked in the company. You know, and you know, some of the things that I remember that stand out are one of my, and I just shared this story not long ago. One of the first trips Harry and I took together, we went into a store and we were doing an event. I think that there or I can't remember if we were just visiting, but anyways, we were there. And at lunchtime, he came to me and he said, "I'm going to go get lunch." So it was my first trip with him and everything. I said, okay, great. You know, so off he goes. He comes back in. He's got a brown paper bag in his hand with a can of Coke. And he walks right back into the tailor shop, sits down at one of the machines, opens up his lunch. The tailors were having their lunch as well, too. And he's talking with them and he's joking and he's asking them questions. And I mean, obviously what Harry was trying to find out was he's trying to find out things that are happening back there at their end, you know, and so the ability to talk with them and communicate with them, that was a great lesson for me. You know, the one thing I told people in all the time that Harry and I spent together, and we spent every day together. We met at least once a day. We talked at least 2 or 3 times a day. He always treated me as a colleague, and he treated everybody the same way. I was never, he was never my superior, ever. And that came through his actions. It came through the way he talked to me. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he was very, very tough to deal with, and he could be, very, demanding of you. But somebody once told me, he said, he only does it because he likes you. If he's like that with you, it's because he likes you.
And I think that I always used to say to my regional directors and DMs, I would ask them to schedule in their monthly calendar just a connection visit. And it's exactly what you just shared. He did. I would say go in with no agenda, no checklist, no thing that you've got to write up, and just go in and work the floor and just be present and ask questions and like find out about people. Those are the times when you do that. You find out more about what's going on in your store than you do going in to do like an assessment or a visual check. And we do have to do that balance of both. But one of the things I used to do at David's Tea all the time was I'd go in and I'd want to make my own tea, and everybody would run around and be like, no, I'll make a tea for you. And I'd be like, no, it's okay. I can make my own tea. And I did it for that exact reason. I wanted to walk behind the counter. I wanted to make a tea. I wanted to relax everybody, make them feel comfortable, because I would always get more out of them. And I remember leaving stores and the DMs and the regional saying, I work with these people every day and talk to them every week. How do you get that much information out of people? And I'm like, because I'm listening more. Like I'm actually got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I'm listening all the time and then asking curious questions. And then I find out like more about your team than you may know in like a whole month, because you're always talking at them, not actually listening. So I think that's a huge part of leadership, right? Like, how do we get better at doing that? And I say, take your title aside. You're working to support your team. And the more that you can do that, the better results you're actually going to get. I truly believe that.
Yeah, and the thing is, and I remember reading that in your book about you being going in there and going in with this disarming thing. I'm not. There's no title here. Okay, I'm just there. And you're right. You do learn so much. And if I was running a company, I would want everyone at some point in time to be spending time, if it was a retail company, on the floor, dealing with customers, behind a cash desk, whatever the case may be, because number one, you get to see what's going on. You get to really see the pulse of the company, but you also, I think, can bring something back to whatever your department is. And it might be a buyer, it could be somebody working in accounting, it could be anything, but the idea is that they can learn something from that and maybe bring something of value to back to the stores. I mean, our cash desks, as an example, ended up becoming designed as a result of someone who put a design together, looking at the cash desk from and he looked at it from obviously maybe from an engineering standpoint, but also from a standpoint and saying, I can make this more efficient. I can make it better looking on this side, but I can also make it more efficient on the on the associate side as well too. Would have never happened if it hadn't been for that person.
So how do you, because like I really believe in the power of positive leadership. I mean, I wrote a book about it. I have a show about it now, and I love bringing people on like you. But how do you approach leadership? What's your leadership philosophy? Like, do you believe that positive leadership's important?
Oh, for sure. And the thing is that, when I would be brought in, or if I was dealing with a team or a new group of people, what I would do is I would look at the people. Probably my first step would be to observe. I would observe them. I would observe them in their environment. I'd observe them as much as I could, watching them. And what I would try to do is identify their strengths, the strengths of each one of the people. And I'm the first one to admit I don't have strengths in certain areas. So when I see somebody that has strengths in areas where I don't, I team up with them and I say, look, you know what, you're good at this part. I'm not so great at this. One of the things that you wrote in your book is that you're a leader of people, which I love that, because I used to look at myself and feel myself, not that I wasn't successful at it, but I was a leader of people. I wasn't great on the sales floor. I said before, my dad was a great salesman. Harry was a great salesman. There was a lot of people that I was surrounded by that were fabulous salesmen. I could never even hold a candle to these people. but I was good with people. I could be a good leader, and I love that, to be able to identify that as a strength, and say that's how I'm going to move forward. It was so good.
Oh yeah, and that's what I love about retail, right? Like, I think that's the funny thing. It's like when I went into it, it was kind of like this, same thing. I was really good with people and leading teams and building people. I could get people to buy into anything, but I wasn't necessarily the best salesperson. For whatever reason. I mean, people think that I am, but like, I can sell you a vision and join a team, and I can help you, and I can get the best out of people. But retail really is a people business, and that is so valuable. I mean, like, you make a difference in people's lives every day, whether they go home and feel good about the day that they left behind and who they were working with, and that has a ripple effect on their families and everybody, their community. And I truly believe that needs to really come front and center now. I feel like in retail, I feel like digital has been like the last 10 years. And I feel like that this focus needs to come back into the stores and back into focus. I read something yesterday on LinkedIn that I think it was one of the designer brands. I'm probably going to get it wrong. Fendi or one of them. It could have been Dior, said, I believe, Louis Vuitton, I believe that stores are where the experience is going to be in the future. Not that we're discounting digital, but people want to have that experience and connection with people. And that's never going to go away. People that say bricks and mortars are dead, I'm just like, no way. I don't buy it.
Yeah. I don't either. Yeah, no, I don't believe that either. I believe that brick and mortar is still going to be important for certain things. I mean, I know that online has taken a hold of retail, and there's going to be certain commodities and certain products that will be successful, and they have been, and they will even be more so. But there are also going to be commodities that still will flourish in that one-on-one setting, and that intimate relationship between salesperson and customer. You talked. One of the other things I wanted to mention is that the other thing was that in Rosen's, obviously it's a commission sales floor environment, so it's very competitive. On the floor. The other thing as a leader is because everybody sold in our company. No one was exempt from selling, and But what people came to realize about me was that I was very much a strong support mechanism. So if they called me in to help them technically with a made-to-measure issue and things like that, I never became a threat to them as far as that I would take their customer away from them, anything like that. And that I found helped tremendously for me, because I became a partner. I became a team member to them, so that was also a big benefit.
That's a really huge point. I remember working in a commission environment 10 years ago, and it was the number one customer complaints I would deal with was like salespeople on the floor having that kind of tension, which is never good. So yeah, that's super good for managers and leaders to hear, like, be a partner to your sales team. It's okay to have commission and goals, but really make sure that you're going at it from the right perspective and the right approach, and being that positive support partner. How do you stay calm and collected under like times of pressure as a leader? Because right now I think that retail is going through a big transition. I'm sure that they're dealing with, we're not in bricks and mortar right now, but I'm sure that there's so many more operational challenges and things happening, and just so much more complexity, right, than ever before. I know in Ontario it's been, very challenging. Retail Council of Canada have been working their butts off trying to figure all that out with everybody. But how do you stay, what's your advice to somebody? Like, how do you stay calm and positive? People always ask me that all the time under times of pressure,
Well, I find that people used to, I remember when I would facilitate training sessions, and people would come to me and they'd say, how do you do this? Like, especially because sometimes you get people in the sessions that aren't getting it, and they're asking questions, and sometimes they're not listening and whatever. And they say, how do you stay so calm, like the whole thing? And I don't know what my, honest to God, I don't know what my secret is for staying calm. I've always been a calm person, but I think part of it is that, when you know what that goal is, when you know where you want to go, and the other point that you made in your book about that sort of adjusting of the goal and changing, as time, and changing with times and whatever the environment is. That's also being open to that, so being able to when you get into a store, if you've had certain things that you wanted to get done, and you realize, okay, I can't do those because something's happened, you need to be able to say, okay, fine, I'll get to this next time I'm here. We need to deal with this right now.
Yeah.
And that's I find the best way to stay calm from that standpoint. Look, this is going to be a real challenging time for retail right now. But I really truly believe that people who are I think there's a group of people out there that are sick and tired of their sweatpants. I really do, and they're going to say, okay, that's it. They're going into the garbage, and I'm going to get some big boy pants, and I'm going to get some nice things to wear and feel better. And I'm not necessarily saying they're going to get back into suits, but or suits per se as we remember them. But I think that they are going to. There's going to be that customer out there, and it's finding them and attracting them to get them in the store.
Yeah, yesterday I was at Rebekah Minkoff's book signing of Fearless in Miami because I'm down here, so I happened to see it on her social, and they were asking questions about what's selling right now, because she's like, same thing. She's like, everybody's we've been living in leggings for the last year or sweatpants, and she said they were really nervous about putting heels out because women haven't worn heels for a long time.
Oh, wow.
And they launched a shoe with like a 2-inch heel, and it blew out in 3 days. She's like, everybody wants to learn to walk again, and everybody wants to wear a heel, maybe not a high heel, but this 2-inch heel. And she's like, and it just sold out. So there is going to be this desire to get, dressed up. I mean, I love getting dressed up and shopping and looking good.
Right. And, when you told me that you had met her, I was so excited. I have such a huge respect for designers and what they bring. One of the other things that we tried to do very, very much so in the company was I always used to say to our associates, find out what the designer's original intent was when they created this garment. Why did they do it? How did they want this garment to be worn? What did it look like? I mean, Hugo Boss was a great example. Hugo Boss, when it was first introduced, and I'm dating myself now, but people were sizing them down, because they were a big fitting garment. And when we finally realized, we said, hey, this isn't right. We shouldn't be sizing it down. This is supposed to be big fitting. It's supposed to be loose. Same. So anytime we brought new garments in or new designers, new lines in, I always wanted to know, okay, what was their intention? What did they want this garment to do? How did they want it to look? And that's why, like I say, I was excited when you told me you met her, because designers to me are just so such an integral part. And when you know that as a salesperson on the floor, you are talking with conviction now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. Oh yeah, it was so great to get her. I can't wait to start reading her book actually. So I'm going to start reading it today. But so we're time flies on this show. We're coming up to 30 minutes. So we've got, we can't keep going for a little bit, a couple more questions. But, what's something that, if you look back at your younger self, you would tell your younger self? Because I think we all have wisdom with age or experience, and we can provide that wisdom and experience to other people growing in the business that are looking at retail and thinking of it as a career. So what would you tell your younger self, knowing what you know now?
I think probably because I gained an appreciation for how important the customer was over years. So I think that would be the first thing, is that to realize how important the customer was, and to listen to the customer as to what they're telling you, to actually listen, and not these items are moving slow, I'm going to push this item, to really listen to them, because selling them the right garment at that time doesn't necessarily mean it's the most expensive garment. It just means selling the right garment for whatever the needs are at that time. So being more aware and understanding the customer. And then the other thing is, I would say, and again, because I worked in my own smaller operation initially, I learned how to everyone was a colleague. That's what I learned at Harry Rosen's. We're all colleagues. Everybody's door was open in that company, and we all work together. It's a team, and that's what I would tell myself, is that to always treat people, no matter who they are, exactly the same.
Well, you can feel that, Mark, from your energy on this live. I saw a comment, somebody put that this is coming across so genuine and authentic. So no wonder people want to work with you.
Thank you. That's great.
Because you can feel that from people, right? You can feel that authenticity and that connection and that passion from people that want to work with people. And I've been fortunate. I've had some really amazing bosses. I've had some not so great ones that I've learned what I didn't want to be. But one of the ones
that was also good about your book. That was really good about your book, and talking about that, what you learned from them. That was great. I really enjoyed that part.
I always go into every experience saying, what can I learn? I mean, I remember, I talk about in the book about that VP that gave us that huge sales goal. And we were like, what is she talking about? The chocolate bar, the $1 million chocolate bar story, right? And I was like,
good.
That was such a great learning experience. I went home and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, I'm going to solve this, And then we did it. And everybody always loves that $1 million chocolate bar story because I do believe that, you can people push you, right? Like people come into your experience in your life to push you. So even if you're working with a leader or a manager that's like tough on you, look at those experiences and think about what can you learn. And that's my best advice to people. Always go in as a curious person because you're going to then grow so much and gain so much more wisdom to share with others.
Of course. Yeah.
So last question, probably. And what do you think it's going to require for leaders in the future in retail to be successful?
I think that they're going to have to be definitely, flexible. They're going to have to be able to deal with a number of different things. I believe that they really do need to stay close to the floor, and no matter how high up you get in the company, spend as much time as you can on that front line, because that's the pulse. And listen to what the customers are saying to you. Listen to what they're asking for. That to me is key for leaders. And listen to the associates. Talk to them. And listen to the people that are in the back room that are stocking the back shelves. Listen to in clothing, obviously. Listen to the tailors. Listen to the people everywhere in all parts of the company, because they all have something to tell you that's important.
100%. I can't say that enough. It's like if you're working in a retailer and you haven't worked in a store, no matter what function you're in, you need to go and just spend an afternoon after COVID when things start getting back to normal. But I think it's going to be so important to get back to that shop floor, like you said, Mark, and really, listen and really find out what's going on. I love Retail U as a community because we have a community of managers that have just joined themselves, and we have these roundtables sometimes because I just love getting customer insights, and it's just amazing listening and asking them questions and hearing what they have to say. So. Super, super good. Oh, this was such a good conversation. I can keep talking to you all day.
Thank you. So I appreciate that.
What are you up to now? Like, you're obviously not at Harry Rosen anymore. So what are you doing now? Are you looking for your next retail adventure?
Yeah, I'm looking for my next retail adventure. I've been helping out some retailers, small retailers who are in made to measure, and they don't feel they have quite the obviously the knowledge. So I'm helping them out with fitting. I've dabbled a little bit with not virtual companies, but digital companies that are trying to perfect that being able to take a camera shot of somebody and determine what their sizes are and what measurements are. But yeah, I'm looking for my next opportunity, whatever that might be. Something that would be in retail would be great, Yeah.
I know retail's it gets you, doesn't it? I think somebody I think it was David Louis on one of our lives. He said it's kind of addictive. I'm like, it kind of is. It kind of is because it
is. You get so. I mean, I find that building up. Obviously, that Saturday nights were always that. You finish the week, and if you have a great week and and you had that balance where you had some great merchandise came in and had great sales and everybody's everybody had a great week, you just feel so so fulfilled.
Yeah 100%. And you meet amazing people. That's why I say, and I've traveled the world with retail, that's why I say retail is such a great career for people thinking about it, because you work for international companies, you can move. There's so many opportunities out there.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I met my best friend in retail over 25 years ago. She was 30 years ago now. She was my boss. So you never know, right?
No, I know. And that's what's exciting, you know, about you. I haven't finished your book yet, but I found that was what very interesting is the fact that you've been involved in companies in different continents and everything, and dealing with the people. It must be so, you know, obviously you must have a lot of stories with regard to, you know, dealing with people, whether it be in the UK or in the US or in Canada, and what it's like to lead teams in different, because I mean, obviously we all have our certain, you know, characteristics and things that we follow, and you see that, you come across that.
Yeah, definitely helped me listen more and be more adaptable, and not make judgment, not make assumptions, because words in one country mean something else in another country to somebody else, you know. So it's so, I think, to me, language is so fascinating, how tone and one word can change an energy, change the direction of a conversation, change how somebody feels about that conversation. I think I'm very conscientious of that. And I try to train my leaders to be the same way, you know, like really think about what that person needs, not this is what you need, you know, always in a place of service. I mean, it's a service industry, so you got to love that. Otherwise you won't be successful in it. Right. So.
Right. Yeah. No, of course. Yeah.
So, well, we're going to wrap up this this weekly broadcast. So thank you so much, Mark, for being on and sharing your words of wisdom and your energy and your passion. It was such a great conversation. So I want to thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. This is I have had so much fun. You know, we'll have to do it again sometime.
So if you see this in your feed, you know, share it with your retail network. Me and Mark will go back and read the comments afterwards, and we'll make some comments. And yeah, just have a really great week, everybody. And we'll see you next week on The Positive Effect. Bye for now.
Great. Thank you.